Devastation and heartbreak as you saw parts of historic Lahaina town destroyed as wind-whipped wildfires continue to rage.
At least 6 people have been killed, dozens more injured, some with critical burn injuries, and officials are still conducting search and rescues. A flyover today showed more than 271 structures have been either damaged or destroyed.
As many of you are aware, Lahaina, Maui, a small historic town in Hawaii, has just experienced probably the biggest disaster in our state's history. As a Kama'aina, or someone who has been born and raised in the state of Hawaii, the images and reports of what have transpired have weighed heavy on my heart, and they've grieved my soul. As a historic town and former fishing village, Lahaina was built in the early 1800s and therefore was comprised of mostly old wooden structures. There is only one primary way in and therefore only one way out, which is what made the evacuation of this area nearly impossible when a spark ignited a wildfire and a certain calamity struck. To further exasperate the problem, Hurricane Dora, a Category 5 hurricane, was passing just a couple hundred miles south of the Hawaiian island chain and causing wind gusts of up to 80 miles per hour in the far-reaching bands. This led to a fast-moving, far-reaching fire, the likes of which Hawaii has never experienced before. For the people that realized what was happening, they started to flee for their lives, some even jumping into the ocean to try to outrun the wall of fire that was coming toward them. For many others, they had no idea what was coming because the Civil Defense Warning System, the largest in the United States of America, never sounded. The result is, at the time of my recording this, at least 100 casualties and more than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for. And the great historic town of Lahaina, one of the most popular tourist destinations due to its natural beauty, has been almost totally reduced to ash and rubble. With all of this going on, now the finger pointing is starting. Who's to blame? What went wrong? How could this have ever happened? But is this really the time for this? I remember one of my favorite pastors, Pastor Chuck Smith, saying, whenever there is a horrific event, 2 primary groups show up on the scene, the police and the paramedics. The police will be interested in who broke what laws and are fixated on holding people accountable. The paramedics, however, have one single focus on their minds. How do we sustain life? Right here, right now, what Hawaii needs is more paramedics and less police. In Luke 10:30-37, Jesus said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw them, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he sat him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to an innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And a person said, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. Here we have an account of a man who was in desperate need of help, ravaged by outside sources, and unable to survive without someone else to step up and take care of him. Then along came 2 people, a priest who represented those wrapped up in dead religion, and a Levite who represents those who think they are morally superior. But neither of them helped the man who was hanging on by a thread. Oh, I'm sure their excuses were plentiful, but the bottom line is that dead religion and moral superiority doesn't really care about others, because they are both rooted in selfishness and focused on the law rather than on grace and sustaining life. But then there was a different guy, someone who cared about people, someone who counted the cost, someone who had compassion. In other words, he wasn't just moved by emotion, but he was compelled to act. What the people of Hawaii need right now are people like this guy. Rather than looking around piously saying, who is my neighbor? We need to be people who are asking the reverse question. Who can I be a neighbor to? And right now, Lahaina Maui needs some ohana to step up and help them because we are neighbors and we want to sustain life. There are trustworthy ministries, including Samaritan's Purse, who could use your help as they are trying desperately to be a neighbor to those devastated in Hawaii. And if you are able to be a paramedic for now and leave the policing for another day, we would be eternally grateful. This is Frank from Reasons for Hope. And on behalf of my people, mahalo and aloha.